So many young people message me asking about becoming a realtor. And to be honest with everybody, if you're listening and you're debating it, I do not recommend necessarily getting into the business right now. But if you're super keen to get into real estate, I think the mortgage broker world is underserviced.
If I were to go back in time, I 1,000% would have been a mortgage professional, not a realtor.
Same.
Would you, like, it's like being a realtor who doesn't have to work on weekends and evenings. Like, they're not going to Timbuktu Friday night at 8 p.m. to show a property to someone they met off the internet, you know, who like may ghost them like halfway down the drive. Like,
when I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich
let's go. This is the Master Keys podcast. I'm Chandler Haliburton.
I'm Neal and Andreino. Welcome back.
Yeah, we're real estate investors. We do this podcast to talk about wealth growth with a focus on real estate. If you find anything interesting here, please like, subscribe, follow, share with someone that you might know. We're trying to build this thing as a community-based approach. You know, thanks to all of you who've been coming up and saying hello, saying that you're watching the podcast. Actually, a guy last night at the skate park came up and was like, "You that guy from the Master Keys podcast?"
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's awesome. We love it. We're new to this, so it's exciting. Little disclaimer, I've been seeing this everywhere, but we are not financial advisors.
Nope.
We're just giving our opinions and our best thought process on a lot of these things. So hopefully it's helping you guys. But again, we're not financial advisors. You don't necessarily need to follow or do what we're saying. We're just telling you what we're doing and what we think is one of your better options.
Yeah, and what we're having success with, and then what we're struggling with, and you know, we're getting feedback from you guys. And in fact, that leads in perfectly to what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go through a bunch of questions that you listeners have asked us. So thanks so much. If you got more, put them right below this in the comments section. If you're listening on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, just reach out to us through social media or hop on YouTube and give us some questions. If you listen here, you may hear one of your questions. We're going to talk about why pricing is still high, a little further conversation on variable, some extra surprise ones that I'm going to throw at Neal to see what he has to say, and then some others about vendor take-back, financing, and all this stuff that you guys have been asking. So we're going to go into all of that, and I know there's going to be stuff in there for people to learn from because people are asking us these questions regularly. So we're going to break down all of those.
Yeah, exciting. Today, I am a bit of a zombie. I was already telling you.
Yeah, explain why, because this is relevant.
So for all of you that have been listening, you know that I started doing Airbnb stuff, turned 3 of my units into Airbnbs. Shout out to my girlfriend. Again, she does it all. She handles it all. And so even though I didn't really have to do anything this morning, she had to get up at 6 a.m. to run out there to get some curtains sorted out.
Hang a curtain.
Hang a curtain because we have a long-term stay coming up, and we got a note that the person from one of our guests that there was no curtains in the bedroom or bathroom and they were uncomfortable, rightfully so. So she ran out there this morning to get sorted at 6 a.m. I'm not an early riser, but I'm obviously awake once the party in the house is awake.
You're looking like a bit of a hurting unit.
And I am a hurting
Fade's
unit
nice.
this
You're
morning.
looking tight.
Yeah, thank you. So anyways, like I texted Chandler this morning, I said, you better bring the heat because I am not.
Well, I love this because I was razzing about like how long will Neal last as an Airbnb manager, because you get that sort of crap and you've already decided that you're not going to run it through the winter. You're going to convert it to longer term stays over the winter.
Yeah, because everyone I've talked to that's in Airbnb is just like, don't do the winter. Like, you're going to have to drop your rates to keep up the occupancy. You're going to start getting bad reviews because oddly enough, the people that pay less to stay are also going to give you way more heat and shit about it.
That's not surprising at all.
So there's such a demand right now. We're going to try and do long-term stays until April, May, and then put them back on for the summer. Because it's been insane. We listed another one there last week, and within 4 days, I think we booked 6 weeks. Not with one person. Like, we had like probably 8 or 10 bookings within 4 days. So it was just completely full within a day.
Well, what's the average amount of days that people are staying?
That's a good question. I'd probably say around 3 to 5. Like, that seems to be the consistent one. And then we've had a few longer, like 2 week stays, and now we have, I think, our first 6 week coming up.
Do you have a minimum day booking? Like,
yes, we have a minimum 3.
Minimum 3, yeah. Okay.
Well, I guess 2 nights, minimum 2 nights, so
right.
3 days. Because everyone recommended do not do single nights, and we've really been debating it because there is like little slots, you know what I mean, like where it doesn't overlap perfectly, and there's only a 1 night, so technically. Yeah. No one can even book it.
Yeah.
And we're debating doing the 1 nights, but again, same thing from everyone who's in this business. They tell me 1 nights are.
Yeah, you get so much work because the turnover is the hard thing, right? Which is why you try to find that perfect compromise between like the longer stays while also maximizing the amount of money.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The other thing, not to drag on about it, that's kind of concerning me is there's like this thing about they came out some articles about Airbnb. People are starting to go back to hotels because Airbnb is getting so friggin' expensive.
Oh, I believe it, man. Like I've stayed in a couple Airbnbs recently. I was like, damn, man. Like we stayed in the South Shore, and I think we paid
Oh yeah.
Man, I think it was like $300 a night, something like that.
Yeah,
Which
like
is
it was
not,
nice, but was it? Now it's nothing on this world,
It's
was it?
nothing crazy. It kind of has a sentimental value for us because we've gone to it multiple times over the years. But it's like if I'm going to pay $700, like at some point for 2 nights stay, like
And hotels will usually like they'll come clean your room.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have like a restaurant in house. They'll have a pool, a gym, and so like we're going away, and I'm like, do we ever look at hotels? Like we automatically go to Airbnb.
100%. But there's also a case where in some areas, if you want to go more rural, like there just aren't
Yeah,
hotel
that's your
options,
only
right?
option.
So it'll still be strong in that respect. But at some point, in bigger city centers, I'd be curious to see how that ebbs and flows because there's also something cool. Like think of when some of these cool hotels launched here in Halifax and what a big deal it was to say that you went there and stayed there.
Exactly.
Like they were Instagrammable and people were like, it was a real thing to go and check out these new hotels, and I could see that coming back. But cool. So we're going to dive into some questions later. You might hear your question. Like I said, don't hesitate to put your question down below because we will get to them. I think there's going to be some really good takeaways from that.
Yep.
So listen for that. But let's dive into some news off the
Hit
top
me.
here. You want me to hit you? Okay. This was a headline, and I draw attention to these from time to time because I just think it's important to keep this as part of the narrative out there. Landlords get a lot of heat.
Always.
But this story came out about two of my favorite people in the world, and that's landlords and realtors coming together for the good of humanity. This landlord is currently sleeping on the realtor's couch because this poor gentleman in Ontario purchased a home and was living in it, and then last August decided that he was going to work abroad for a year. So he rented out his personal residence with a fixed-term lease that was to expire July 31st. Immediately once the tenants moved in, they were late with their payments. They did damage to the property. They actually showed some photos in the article. You can check it out. Just Google landlord sleeps on realtor's couch. Like the property looks rough. There's a sign that has like the two guns. It's like, this property is monitored by a crazy B word. Like anyone found here at night will be found here in the morning. Like, these are not your ideal tenants. So just a reminder out there to vet your tenants carefully.
Do you have that sign in your house?
Yeah, I do. My wife put it up. So,
Hopefully she's not watching this episode.
so the homeowner comes back and basically is like, well, I need my house back. I'm moving back now. The lease is up.
Yeah.
And in addition to, being $13,000 behind in payments, causing a lot of damage to the property, they've also just refused to leave. So at this point now, the poor owner is literally couch surfing because the quickest he could get a hearing is August 29th. So full month, which is actually significantly better than Halifax, by the way.
I gotta say on this, like, so that is quite a bit better than here. And this is actually, remember when all this stuff was coming out, I was very concerned that, yeah, it's great, but now hearings are going to be booked out forever.
And they are.
But so I agree. Like, I understand them putting the controls on landlords emptying buildings, and I understand the process, and I get that it's helping to stimulate build new stuff and to protect people in those positions, and to give them, let's say, extended stays with payouts and all that. Like, I'm okay with all of that. But when it comes to somebody like reoccupying their own property, like, they need to have an expedited process for that. They need to. Because we have a ton of buyers that'll buy properties that have a tenant that are supposed to leave, and like they have legal right and they've purchased it to move into the space, and they can't get it. It's like, oh, it's 60 days. But then if the tenant just says no, you have to go to the tenancy. Like, it's...
Yeah, I think on the purchase and sale, I think it's okay how it is. I mean, if you're a tenant and your landlord sells your property, you have to have some protections. If your landlord sells the property and is like, you got to be out in 30 days, I genuinely don't think that's quite fair. However, if the owner of a property says something like, something has happened in my life and I need to reoccupy my own property, assuming it's genuine, then yeah, I think that does need to be expedited. I think on the sale, 2 full calendar months is very reasonable because most sales take 45 days to close anyway. Like, I do think that's kind of reasonable, but this is a situation where someone is trying to get into their own property that they own and that they didn't give 30 days notice. They actually gave 12 months notice because it was a 12-month lease. And he told them, I'm coming back from working abroad 12 months from now. You have to be gone. There's no way that this guy should be in a situation where he has to wait a month plus to get back into his own property while sleeping on couches.
It's 60 days here. Like, I think that 60 days is fine, but I think there needs to be a thing. Like, on 60 days, if they don't leave, like, you shouldn't have to go through a hearing process and spend the next 6 months trying to work on it. It's like at the end of the 60 days, you should be able to call the sheriff and be like, I need into my home. And I understand it's tough for somebody to move, but like, 60 days is enough time. And again, it's not just for them to come in and reno. It's for them to reoccupy their own home. And realistically, any good tenant who signed the lease would have just left on the day that it ended.
Yeah, this isn't broad stroking all tenants here. This is why anytime tenants like, we need a stronger tenancy board, all the landlords are like, yes, absolutely, we need a stronger tenancy board.
Yeah.
Totally agree, 100%.
Because both ends, it's a complete mess. And I think right now it's definitely swaying against the landlords. But anyways.
Some other news, and this is kind of following up because someone asked this. I was talking last time about how many more realtors there are in the U.S., right? There was this big spike in the number of realtors. Yeah. And so coincidentally, shout out All Nova Scotia. If you're here in Nova Scotia and you don't subscribe to All NS, like, I don't know what's wrong with you. You got to subscribe to All Nova Scotia. Even actually now they're in New Brunswick. And
use our
PEI.
promo code Master Keys Podcast. We'll take
well, man, like, yeah, I know. Anyway, All Nova Scotia, it's amazing, and they're spreading across Atlantic Canada, and they cover business news, real estate news, political news. You kind of have to.
It's a good way to get tapped in here.
To be tapped in, yeah. But very serendipitously, they published an article yesterday. Well, it'll be a week ago now when this releases, about the fact that the increase in the number of realtors in Nova Scotia. Did you read this?
I did, and I can't remember what the number is, but was it percentage we're asking?
This is a percentage increase since the start of the pandemic, so since 2020. What percentage increase in the number of realtors in Nova Scotia?
26%.
Woo! 23%. He undershot.
Damn.
Yeah, you forgot about the 3% that left the business. Actually, probably more than that. But yeah, so we're up 23% in the number of realtors since 2020. And what's crazy about that is, of that 23%, I think something like the first 18% were in the first 12 months of the pandemic that joined.
The thing, which is, I guess, in our, like, local to us, our brokerage, it feels like it's been a lot faster in the last 6 months. But maybe that's just how we grew, or maybe I'm forgetting how many joined at that time.
Yeah.
But what's our volume again? Our volume overall is down right now.
Oh yeah. So we can get into the stats, but yeah, the number of sales in July, like the number of transacted sales in this July compared to last July, is down 18%.
So yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm like, we're up 26% in realtors and down 18% in
23.
volume. Sorry, up 23% in realtors and down 18% in volume. That's from like, oh God, like it's going to be a tough gig to get into. And it's getting a lot more intensive, and you need to be a lot more nitty gritty with your deals because you list places and they don't necessarily sell immediately. That being said, I mean, things are changing. But
the other thing too, while the volume is down 18% in July, the total value of the real estate transacted is only down 10%.
That
which kind of speaks to the fact that the prices are up. And people don't want to hear that because they're like, all right, market's slowing down, blah, blah. But prices are still up. And we're going to delve into that in a little bit because someone asked about that. But yeah, there's more realtors, presumably eating from a smaller trough.
So many young people message me asking about becoming a realtor. And to be honest with everybody, if you're listening and you're debating it,
and you get left on red by Neal.
And if you get left on red by Neal, which is a very, like, there's a strong chance that happens. I honestly think, like, unless you are extremely passionate and prepared to spend a few years building your business or have some other, like, value piece where you have someone that's a builder or something like that can feed you for sure, like, I do not recommend necessarily getting into the business right now. Again, unless you're extremely motivated.
It's not an ideal time.
But if you're super keen to get into real estate and, like, you have an aptitude to numbers, I think the mortgage broker world is underserviced. Yeah. Because it's not sexy. Appraisal world, all the auxiliary things, nobody asks about that. Everyone just knows realtor. But there's another group of people that, like, a mortgage broker's making 1%, if not 2% on a deal. You know what I mean?
If I were to go back in time, 1,000% would have been a mortgage professional, not a realtor.
Same.
1,000%.
1,000. That's and I say I have a lot of really educated young people that come and ask me, and I'm like, you know your shit. Go in the mortgage broker world. You'll be able to do way more volume. The lifestyle's there.
Yeah. Would you, like, it's like being a realtor who doesn't have to work on weekends and evenings. And
you don't have to drive around all day.
Mortgage brokers out there are going to be like, I work tons. And they do. They do work a number of evenings and weekends. I'm not trying to, but not like realtors. Like, they're not going to Timbuktu Friday night at 8 p.m. to show a property to someone they met off the internet, who, like, may ghost them, like, halfway down the drive. Like, it is a different grind, and you still get and the knowledge base, like what they know is incredible. Like some of the stuff that we're talking about here about monetary policy and bank rates and all these things, if you find that interesting, realize that every mortgage broker in the city, the good ones at least, know that stuff inside out. Like they have access to all this knowledge. It's a great career. I feel like we're just promoting career life choices. But man, 100% that's what I do. And if I didn't do that, I'd maybe be an appraiser.
Yeah,
I do both, but I think there's a conflict.
Well, I was like, I'd like to get all three right now, and then I can just do my own. But yeah, no, 100%. I'm with you on that. The appraiser one, I think is awesome. But I also look at a lot of my appraisers, and I'm like, this also looks very similar to the realtor gig, where like I'll go to one property, they're with me, they're running through, they're jamming down notes, and then I'll pull out, and I'll see them literally pull out, drive on the street, pull into another house, and get out and start doing the same thing. And I'm like, okay, like the appraiser thing looks sweet, but also looks kind of intense.
They're getting ground to a
the
pulp
nice
right now,
the
too.
nice thing with both of those businesses though is a lot of the back end work can be handled by an administrative team.
Yeah, it's a different if it's a different model.
Like
yeah.
I think there's a lot of parts on there that you can do, and like when I talk to mortgage brokers, like on a really ideal case, technically the person fills out their form, which is an automated thing online. They put together the paperwork, which again is usually submitted online, and an administrator will put it like finalize, make sure everything's there, send it to the mortgage broker. He reviews everything, make sure it's all good.
Yeah.
And then he can almost, once you get comfortable with it, he can just pick a bank that he knows is going to approve it. But
yeah. Not sure how we got into that, but like,
I digress.
Realtors way up, the volume of sales way down, the total value of those sales is down 10% as well. So if you want to get into actual, like the amount of commissions out there is down at least 10% year over year, even though the number of agents is up, significantly over the last 2 years. So kind of interesting there. I've got more news if you want to
keep it in the news. Like I said today, I need you to bring the fire.
Bring the fire. Well, man, this is going to be fire to most people, but it is interesting. As of this morning, StatCan published their inflation numbers for July, and it's good news.
It is good news.
It's good news, maybe. Inflation slows to a measly 7.6%, and that's down from 8.1% in June. So, what's your reaction?
Exciting. That's like in my head, immediate thing I think is like, oh wow, rate hikes are working.
Oh yeah.
And is that the case, or is it like we just had a ton of inflation last year at this time, and is that what's offsetting what we're getting?
Here's where I'm
now?
not totally sold on it all. Gas went down. Like gas went down significantly.
Yeah.
And gas drives everything. No pun intended. Hey you. So gas being down.
Sorry, let's go vomit.
Gas being down is a big time leader of this, and isn't that a bit misleading in the sense that when gas goes back up, what are we going to see inflation again? So now.
And this is the thing, and they can what is it? I forget what the term is that they use, but basically they can shotgun it down. Like they can control the ability to crank gas down, so it gives good numbers. And so like politically, they can be like, all right, we need to bring this down, so we're going to jam gas down by 30% or 25%, make those numbers go down to get us happy. And like the other thing is, I just saw gas went back up, I think like a bit.
Also,
and I was like, what the hell?
So it is promising. We talked about this when we talked about the American numbers, how they also reported a decline in inflation, and we're celebrating that because these numbers lag. That 7.6 that was effective, July 31st. So we're now 3 weeks removed from July. It stands to reason that trend is continuing, and that our actual in the moment, up to the minute inflation is down even further. My concern, though, did you see the markets yesterday?
No, I did not.
They did great. Because all that happens is we get this little bit of good news, the markets
it's all
run
sentiment.
up, and then exactly. And my concern is this is both a plus and a negative. People are so quick to celebrate or panic, I guess, but they're so quick that will we really slow consumer confidence enough to get this thing down? Because one little bit of good news, I guarantee with this news, the market's going to be up today. I haven't looked yet, but the market will be up. And then when the market goes up, now you have inflationary pressure again. So like how stubborn of a thing will it be to move this down? But the same sentimentality is why I feel really optimistic about next year. Because I'm telling you, when this situation slows down a bit more and when interest rates come back down, we're going to have a strong market next year. I really feel it, man.
See, so this is where like I'm feeling like an idiot today because I just haven't had the chance. I went for a motorcycle ride yesterday evening, and I do so much stuff in the evening. Now I feel like I didn't get a chance to check the markets. I didn't get to do any
behind Cyrus like this.
Yeah. I did not go for a ride with Cyrus, but Cyrus is a
what's that
broker,
called when you ride in the back?
and he also has a bike.
Okay, we can't say that.
Yeah.
That's how Neal rides to Cyrus. Shout out Cyrus.
But yeah, so like everything you've said honestly just gave me more fear and concern, because this is my thing. Like, it's like they could manipulate it, and so I found that surprising that went down, because I'm like, I don't see that. Like, I'm not seeing it anywhere, and I know gas is down, but it's kind of artificially manipulated down.
Yeah,
I don't
because
think
food prices aren't down.
this is the thing, and so I'm like, it makes me more concerned about kind of where things are going. And so, like I said this morning, I'm back and forth. Like, do I feel like an idiot for pausing buying, or do I still think that there's more downwards pressure to go? And I'm still like dealing with financing right now. I still feel like there's more downwards pressure to go. But so
Yeah,
I'm mixed. Like, it's so hard, and even everyone, like I'm like I wish I knew better. And I'm like, maybe I'm like, what am I not understanding? But I see the big boys, like the REITs out there, are like, we're pausing because we don't know what's happening. Like, that's literally what they're saying in their statements. Like, I'll say it. Well, Crombie, they're public. Like, they just paused a big project here in our city because they said just uncertainty. They said they didn't have a specific reason. Like, they couldn't say it's just because like they don't, like, we want to see what happens. Everything's lined up. They said they had the construction done, finance, everything was in place. Literally, they were ready.
And shout out Donnie Clow, one of the smartest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, and he said, we're pausing this due to uncertainty in the market to see where things are going, because maybe the market crashes, they can save 20% next year.
Yeah.
Right. Like, they don't know, or maybe things are nuts and they end up spending way more than the budget. Like, so, yeah. And so that uncertainty for me is still, I don't like uncertainty.
If you feel uncertain, there's one thing I can be certain about, is that you like this podcast. So smash like right now. See how I slipped that in there?
That was good.
I'm trying to work the likes.
I asked Chandler to bring the heat this morning, not corny dad jokes.
Zing, zing. All right. I mean, again, my concern is that we're going to get to a point where people view 5 to 6% inflation as like really good, and we just learn to live with that. And man, like, I don't know what that'll mean for rates. And it'll put a pretty aggressive run on things, which, yeah, man, I'm a bit concerned about how quick we are to celebrate some of these things. And with a little bit of time left here in August, like you said, gas is back up, the markets are back up. The real estate seems to be getting a little hot again. I don't know if you've noticed
real
this.
estate's picking back up. And that's what I was going to say a quick story that I have. I just pulled this up, and it relates to something I'm dealing with here. But it's a Toronto Star article about 2 homes that recently sold well over ask. So one in Scarborough, listed for $688, sold for $900. So same shit that we were seeing before everyone got freaked out about the rates. And then another one that listed, and it went up for $920, and it sold for $980. Or $950, and sold for $980, which isn't a huge percentage over.
Yeah.
But it's that same concept of we are now selling over prices again. And for $1 million home, like, that's ones I talked about where interest rates really impact them, because on a mortgage of $1 million, like, it's a huge amount of extra interest that you're going to pay on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
But to double this down, I just experienced this here in town. I think I mentioned it last week, but we had a listing on market for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
With no offers, and then last weekend we had 3, and we sold over ask.
Yeah.
And doing one today that I think we're expecting 7 offers on. And so I'm like, I think, like,
well, a couple things are going on.
There's a summer slowdown plus the rates.
Exactly. So, some of this was misleading because July is always a bit of a slow month. So part of this, like, oh, real estate's slowing down, it must be the rates. It's like, no, it's because it's July, man. July always sucks. People are away. I can't get any realtors on the phone. They're all like, oh, I've got poor reception where I am. Like, they're all away. Everyone's at the beach. You know, July's just a slow month.
I did have poor reception, Chandler. Okay.
So some of this is just July slowdown, and now we're coming back around. So that's part of it. While the market's picking up again a little bit here. The other thing is people have built up a tolerance to these rates, right? Like, okay, my rates have gone up. This is the new normal. I'm living with it. I still want to move. I still want to get out of my apartment. I still want to get out of my parents' basement. We're still making this move happen. And so they're back out there and they're buying. The other thing is now they have rate holds that look pretty good based on future projections.
True.
All of a sudden now they're like, you know what? My rate hold of 4.25, which I wasn't thrilled about a while ago, now is about to expire, and I kind of want to take advantage of that. So they're out there buying. And this is why, you know, the rate increase of September 7th, which is kind of predicted to be 50 basis points, I'm not sure what they're going to do at least 50, but part of me, and I almost don't want to say this, and you're not going to like me say this, part of me feels like it should be more than 50 basis points, because I think...
I'm just like, Chandler, are you buying all your real estate cash, or do you carry debt? I don't know.
I just saying, like, bigger picture, man, if we actually want to slow this sucker down.
I I agree. I agree that it probably.
The
No,
investor
I
in
don't
me
agree.
wants them
I
to
don't
not
agree.
raise
I'm
anything.
signing a mortgage
The
right now.
economist in me
I'm signing a mortgage
says
right now
they
for
should be up higher.
6%. I don't think this should be going more. That's A money too. I'm getting A money. I actually didn't sign 6 because I took a variable.
Yeah.
I thought of Chandler as I signed
Ride
it.
or die, baby. Let's go.
But that's also why I don't want to go up a bunch because I just signed a variable.
Yeah.
But the fixed 1 year was 6%, and like I'm going to ask you this because I think people want to know, and I think it's something that we have to ask almost every week now. This is not something that we can just do once every quarter. But what are you suggesting to people then for buying?
Okay, this is
for
on
buying,
the, this
before,
on the questions.
for buying outside before you get into rates and stuff.
Okay.
What would you tell somebody now? So a few weeks ago we said now is the best time to buy, on and on. But now you're saying that you think rates are going to go 50, if not more.
Yeah.
Do you still stand by your feeling of to buy or not to buy?
Man, I still feel like there are great buying opportunities here. I think, though, there was a nice little window in July, and I think August and September are going to be busy.
We're feeling it
Like,
already.
I really do feel that there's always an August rush and a September rush. I think there's going to be, I think there is in this exact moment, and it's maybe closing a really good buying window because sales were down significantly in the month of July. Like, if for a lot of brokerages and a lot of agents, July was like the worst month in a long time. But here, August, you feel it bubbling back. September's going to be the same. That's the normal ebb and flow. And then it drops off a cliff again October, November, December. And I think there's going to be another real opportunity October, November, December, because between now and then, there's going to be 2 rate increases. So, you know, that is the double-edged sword of rates go up, market slows down, but can you be opportunistic and purchase in a lull period and get a good deal? So, yeah.
Stand by it.
I stand by it. I still think it's a great time to buy. Like, but it's you have to pick your battles here within it, and you have to be rate savvy. Which, for me, like I'm still rolling variable, or if I'm going fixed, I'm going super short term on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'd say I'd probably agree with you on that. Agree. There was some crazy deals this summer. I even kicked myself in the butt. There's a few places that I have favorited that I've been watching. Nothing. I texted both of them today, and they both have accepted offers. And I was like, you guys had nothing for
Vacay's over, baby.
Yeah, you had nothing for a month, and now they're like, yeah, we had a bunch of showings last week, and we got an offer we didn't like. We had another one, we took it, and I'm like, this is craziness. And I saw a couple places firm up for asking the other day, and I was like, all right, we're back in business. But I'm as on the residential side, I think it's still a good time to buy. I agree with you, man. In the summertime, I heard from builders that were willing to negotiate on their prices, which they have not done in years. And I bet you they're going to go back to not being willing to negotiate here very soon. As an investor, do you feel the same way, or do you think there's going to be opportunities coming down the pipe for people who made not the greatest buys? Because I saw some pretty crazy ones that went in the spring where I'm like, that's a lot per door, or you probably shouldn't be building right now. Do you think you're going to see some stuff there?
I think there's this misconception, and again, some of this is into the questions which we got to dive into here in a moment, of why prices aren't coming down. Like, if you see all these things, the number of listings are up, the rates are up, prices are coming down in peripheral areas.
Transaction volume's down.
Transaction volume is down, but like generally speaking, if we're barely moving the needle, considering that rates are double what they were before, and you know the number of listings is up double-digit percentages across North America, like up significantly. How come prices are still high? And I did a reel about this before, why prices aren't going to come down as much as you think.
Yeah. Nobody liked it.
You know, no one liked it. It was not a hit. But it was right. So
It was.
F you guys. I mean, people aren't going to voluntarily give their homes away. The other thing that we don't realize, you know, it's something like, and I'm jumping ahead now, 65% of Canadians own a house. Okay? Like, of people who are like of age own homes. So 65% of Canadians own a house. Around half of them have a mortgage, right?
That's a lot lower than I thought.
Yeah. So only about half of the homeowners out there even have a mortgage. And you know what? The vast majority of them are on fixed rates. The vast majority.
They haven't even felt this yet.
They haven't even felt it yet.
75% of them.
Yeah. Like, so, you know, it's, and also the other thing is something like, of the people that don't have mortgages, 90% of them are over 45.
Makes
right?
sense,
So,
yeah.
you know, those houses that you want in certain neighborhoods where it's like, oh man, that old established neighborhood, that downtown core, oh, this aging, mature area where like the empty nester might sell, those people don't have a mortgage. And if they do, it's fixed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, so they're not feeling this pressure to sell off. And in fact, people who have variable products, yes, they're getting hammered in the gut, but what are their options? Sell at a loss and move to an overpriced apartment because they're going through the roof, like buy down and buy something cheaper. That's not necessarily the option. So they're going to hunker down and they're going to not sell their property.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what's going on right now because people have that option. Like they will go without a lot of other things in their life before they go without their house. So this mass sell-off that people were expecting that would result in a declining price, the numbers bear it out. It isn't happening. It's probably, well, it's not going to happen to the degree that people think. Yes, there are some periphery areas that are dragging down the national average. Like we said, it's down about 4%.
Yeah.
But here locally, we're up. Prices are up 9.5% since 2021. Are
Yeah.
they down since the high in April? Absolutely. But
always
year
gonna
over year, they're up 9.5%. They're up 31% from 2020. They're up 51% since 2019.
That's disgusting.
Right? So, like,
That's
this
disgusting.
mass sell-off isn't going to happen. And the reason is
There's no
the
inventory.
vast majority of people that own houses, either have a fixed mortgage or no mortgage at all.
Yeah, and
Like-
where are you going to go? There's no inventory, and this is again we've said it a bunch of times. The difference between now and 2008. 2008 in the States, they had a shitload of inventory. It's like they said in the what's the movie,
The Big Short.
The Big Short, and they like interviewed a stripper, and she's like, "I got 3 houses," and
Yeah.
they're like, "What in the world?"
Those ninja mortgages because
Yeah.
they're fake approvals.
Exactly. So that's. I mean, now this is where I'm like, I'm a little nervous about places like BC and Ontario, and I think they kind of saw it because they did take a bit of a beating right off the hop because there is some of that I think going on there. But I'm with you. At the end of the day, we've talked about it. It's super simple. Doesn't matter what goes on. You can play with all the levers, but if there's no inventory, nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah, I got totally sidetracked there because you asked me about as an investor. As
Yeah.
an investor, it's different because a lot of investors
Mm-hmm.
predominantly have taken variable products, especially over the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know how it is. Like you're lucky to make $100, $200 a door.
Mm-hmm.
With these increases,
You make
you
$0.
might be making $0 a door or even minus a little bit. It's like, all right, minus $100 a door. It's no big deal when the market's appreciating. So like, listen, I'm losing $100 a door, but the place is going up $5,000 a month, right? I'm laughing. Well, right now the place is going down or at least staying steady, and you're losing $100 a door, and you've got, maybe now you're losing $400 a door because rates are through the roof, and you got 12 doors. Like, now I'm losing $5,000 a month, and I'm not getting the appreciation. So there's got to be some pressure on these investors. The difference is,
It's the takeouts for me.
well, the takeouts are going to be problematic, but you see it more in those bigger markets where people would buy these condos purely to throw a tenant in there. Like, I'm going to pay $500,000 for the condo. I'm going to throw a tenant in there at $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
And it's great because I put 20% down. The rate was dirt cheap. I was paying about, $1,800.
Making money on
I
condos
was
is
making
tough.
money, but even with my condo fee, I was breaking even. It's like, well, now you're losing $500 a month on this condo that's not going up in value.
Yeah.
And those people might see some pressure to sell. But the single family home in that like awesome established neighborhood that you love, and you're like just waiting for that boomer to like get in trouble. Well, man, that boomer probably has no mortgage.
He's not getting in trouble.
Right. So anyway, we're jumping all around
Yep.
here. I've got a couple little other news things.
Hit me.
A lighter one. This happened in Nevada. This woman went to buy her new construction property, and down there they use like notaries, or what do they call what they use down there to close? They don't use lawyers to close transactions there. They use I can't remember. If you know the answer, comment down below.
It's a notary, isn't it?
Is it a notary?
I think so.
There-
But
there's another
someone
term for it as
confirm
well
that.
down there.
Yeah.
But someone was just trying to do the files and had pressed copy and pasted and accidentally, instead of titling over one property to this woman, they accidentally titled over her property plus 84 additional building
Oh, I
lots
saw this.
and 2 additional common like green spaces for the neighborhood. So instead of one property, she accidentally got 86 others because, and the reason they looked into it is like the person was pressing copy and paste and threw all the PIDs on there. And so all of them got transferred over to her, which is hilarious.
That what title insurance covers?
I looked into it, was like, no backsies? Like, can I
She
keep
gets to
those?
keep it, doesn't she? This is like I saw
No.
this once where a guy
No,
with
she
an
doesn't.
ATM where he opened his account and there's like $300 million or something in his ATM account, and he was just like withdrawing as much money as he possibly could. And when they asked the money back, he's like, "Well, I've spent it," and then he didn't have an obligation to give it back, as far as I understood. But
I don't know. Something about that sounds suspect. But there's something
Also-
in contract law. It's like the intent matters, right? Like if someone makes a mistake and the intent is so obviously for it to have been something else,
Yeah.
then that's what. Like if the intent is debatable, like maybe she was expecting that they were selling her all 86 properties for that, but like that wouldn't hold water. But they have to go through this really complicated thing of undeeding them and transferring title back to the developer.
shout out Angela for giving that.
Yeah,
article
yeah.
to you, but,
Angela sent the story over.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
That is kind of weird. I'm going to tell a quick little story that I made a mistake on this one time. So I'm not going to say who, where, but as a realtor, I made this mistake, and it happens. Mistakes happen, but it was a waterfront property where it was two PIDs, and the house was one, and the waterfront was a second.
Oh my God, Neal! Did you forget to sell them the waterfront?
And I forgot to throw the waterfront in there, and we closed. But here's the
Oh
thing.
my God!
I missed it. My assistant at the time then missed it. The other agent missed it. And both lawyers missed it.
Well, the lawyer. Don't blame the lawyers on this, man. How would they know that you were supposed to get both PIDs?
Okay. All right. I'm not. I'm just saying. No. Nobody saw it. But I'm completely at fault. I'm agreeing and understanding that I'm completely at fault.
Oh my
but nobody saw
God,
it or said a
dude.
word about it. We close, and then I forget what went down.
God.
But they went to go do something on the waterfront or something like that, and it didn't. It wasn't there. Like it wasn't theirs. And thankfully, they had bought the house, and the person they sold to was the neighbor, and they were very nice.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, that's what it was. It was the
Ooh,
mail. The mail
man.
came in for the property tax. The property taxes came in for the waterfront,
Oh.
and the neighbor came over and he said, "It's still got my name on it." Anyways,
That is
super
hilarious,
nice guy. He sent it over, but I remember calling our broker, being like, "So I think."
Like you call the broker, it's like, hey, is our errors and omission insurance up to date?
Because this would be a big claim.
This is gonna be a big one.
Yeah, but anyways, very nice guy. He just
That-
deeded it. He deeded it over,
Oh my
and
gosh.
everything went off great. But that would be one of my biggest mistakes ever. And now I double check the PIDs 5 times over, and we'll move on. All right, guys, thanks for listening up until this point. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe. Keep listening because we're about to answer a bunch of questions you guys sent in about vendor takebacks, promissory notes. We also talk about lessons learned up until this point in the year. Chandler and I have some good ones, so stay tuned.
We were talking about rents in the last episode, so I wanted to highlight. I found a list of like decent rents across the country, and
Yep.
it was interesting because you talked a little bit about Alberta cost of living. I also talked a little bit about how there's still many affordable areas in Canada. So I'm just going to throw some areas at you for 2-bedroom apartments, and you can tell me what you think they rent for.
Okay.
Well, first of all, the average July rent across Canada was $1,934.
For a 2-bedroom?
Just in general, that was just across the board,
Holy,
across Canada,
like giant beep. Like what the?
and that's up 10% from last year. So we were talking about how rents in the States have gotten up there, but across Canada, the average
Okay.
is just over $1,900. But I'm here 2 bedrooms. What do you think a 2-bedroom in Lloydminster will cost you?
These can be skewed because it's like an O and G town, and right now it's bumping. So this is based on this last month.
Yeah, in July, but it's Lloydminster, man.
Yeah, but it's people are out there making money.
Okay.
1380.
$977. Really affordable in Lloydminster.
Well, and I was gonna say because the only reason I even went lower than the average after saying what I said was I lived out west in a work town where everyone made bank, and I was renting a 2-bedroom for like $980.
Yeah.
But that was 3
$980.
years. That was 3 years ago.
So here's another
than
one.
5
But
years ago.
there's also some ebbs and flows since then, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Saskatoon, Regina, in that area. How do you think?
Coming out here with the
Don't neglect our friends out there in Saskatchewan.
No,
Prairies.
I got one friend there. Shout out Patrick. Now you get me all messed up. 1120.
Not bad. It's about 1160, 1175, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Patrick
So
told
if
me
you're
before.
looking for an affordable 2-bedroom, check out Saskatoon or Regina. Edmonton, we talked about this and how reasonable rents are in Edmonton. So what's a 2-bedroom in Edmonton costing right
Now
now?
is he tricking me by saying reasonable rent?
City of Champions.
This guy.
If it was still the 80s.
If you 1280.
1333. Very
Not
reasonable for a
bad.
2-bedroom
Not
in
bad.
a major city like Edmonton. I hear they have a great mall.
They
So-
have a large mall.
Red Deer,
A lot of Alberta out west stuff, eh?
which speaks to, we were talking about cost of living and how
1050.
1200.
Okay. Yeah, I guess Red Deer's growing a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are pretty reasonable rates for 2-bedroom apartments, especially based on the national average.
You're just
which,
trying to
like I
push
said,
everybody from here to Alberta? Like, what's the deal?
I'm just these are just observations, buddy. These are just observations. You got any more news, or should we go into some questions
No,
here from
like
listeners?
I said, I wasn't super prepared. The only thing that I was going to bring up, and I brought this up while we were sitting here, is Blackstone, which I called BlackRock about 20 episodes ago and got absolutely roasted online for it. But anyways, Blackstone is preparing a $50 billion fund to buy real estate during the downturn.
Oh, that's sick.
That's a couple bucks. If they got 50 bill, that means they're buying $200 billion worth of real estate. This is the stuff that it still got me sidelining, and it's I'm like, as an investor, I'm like kind of on the fence because I'm like, I think there's going to be deals to come. My biggest one is the takeouts. Like if you're building a brand new building right now and it's your first one at any size, everyone knows that you're going to need at least 75% to get out and cover your construction cost. And
unless you're going through one of these CMHC programs, but yeah.
But I'm just saying you need that to get out. I'm not saying you're not saying what you're going to get, but you need that to get out. And I'm seeing, like, I'm doing a takeout right now with record rents, like probably 25% more than I did on my last takeout on the exact same building down the street, and I'm taking out less money. And it's like with rents that are 25% higher. And that's because your payment goes up by more than 25% when interest rates go up by 200%. So again, long story short, I'm just like, I think BlackRock is thinking there's going to be a bunch of people doing this. Again, in the States where they have more inventory, it's even more of a potential issue. But
we get so much of our news out of the States, and we have to be realistic that we're in a different market, man.
Canada's a very, very different market. But I just think if you're an investor, kind of keep eyes on things. If there's still good deals, you can buy them now.
Scroll up for a second.
But just keeping in mind that, like, I think there's gonna be people that aren't gonna get the takeouts, and you're gonna be able to scoop stuff up at a better price point. And people won't necessarily be able to take a loss, but even if you can get into them at cost, you're gonna save a lot.
That is wild, man.
$50 billion is pretty serious. Like, that's $200 billion. But in real estate world, I mean, it doesn't go very far. But
basically, what they're saying is, we feel there's going to be blood in the streets, right? And that's a great time to invest. And so they are stacking their coffers as big as they can to buy, like, clear out stuff. And if you know about Blackstone, they have a bit of a dubious reputation. And this shift towards, like, major conglomerate landlord models, it's a scary thing. And we talked about this in past episodes. Look into them and look in. I've said this before. If you don't like your mom and pop landlord, or if you don't like your slightly larger but local landlord, imagine something like this, and how you might feel like just a number in that big wheel machine. Okay. Listen, let's get into some questions from listeners now. Again, if you've liked what you heard so far, if you just want to support, if you have any questions, throw down in the comments, throw some likes. These are some questions that have come in. This first one here, Neal, I feel we've covered it to some degree here, but if you want to kind of add anything to it. Question number one, why are prices still high?
We just went over it.
Yeah.
There's no inventory. The people, like you said, a bunch of people, half don't have mortgages. Where are they going to go? Into an overpriced apartment? And like people that were going to buy, well, they're still buying. Like at the end of the day, and the rates are up, but they're not atrociously bad. It's not like out of this world. It's still an option to go out and buy, and people are seeing that in the future they should be able to make money on their property. So, but as like a super basic, like nothing, you don't need to add up all the things. It's inventory. We just don't have the inventory that's going to cause the prices to go down.
Yeah, no one wants to hear this, but even in spite of all these rate increases, there's not enough pressure on sellers to start liquidating properties in most of the markets of Canada.
Yeah.
So that is why prices are still high. You got one for me?
Yeah, I got one. I got one from the Instagram, just brand. I don't know if that's their entire IG handle, but thanks for sending the question. They're asking about vendor take-back mortgages, which we cover in depth on our Patreon. So check that out if you guys want a really detailed answer.
Yeah. That's not the only question that people have asked us about vendor take-backs or private money, going into that in more detail. Check out our Patreon if you haven't. We've got episodes there now on private money, on vendor takebacks, on zero down financing, on debt service coverage ratio.
Yeah.
How to access property owners and track down potential deals. So
we got a bunch in the pipe that we keep putting out.
Yeah, it's kind of the nerd end of stuff. It's high level. If you're interested, check out our Patreon for more on that. We get into all of that nitty gritty.
Yeah, but I'll answer his questions here on a high level. So number one, he said, if you did take a vendor take back, what are some big things to look out for and beware of? Again, check stuff out. We'll give you all the specific details, but I'd say one thing for me is making sure the terms are reviewed by your lawyer and they are not like super favorable for one party or the other. They're very similar
Yeah.
to a regular mortgage.
Yeah, and understanding your payment back options, like can you pay it back earlier?
Exit strategy.
Exit strategy is everything in addition to rates, and is it interest only, and all these other things.
Number 2, he said, how do you decide on a reasonable interest rate? That's a negotiation you need to have. We talk about some techniques on where we think where it should be and kind of how to base it, but it's really a negotiation. I've had some that have done 0, and I also have had some that do 1% a month. So like it goes completely across the board, and you really need to negotiate that and see what the other person's interest is. Are they trying to get you in their property, or are they trying to take back their property at the end of it all?
Yep, 100%.
Last thing is, do you know any lawyers in Halifax that can handle it for them? And we do. We will respond to you with some. And like on that note, if people are looking for referrals for lawyers and agents across the country, we can help you with that. We helped another group in New Brunswick line up with an investor agent that has properties himself, buys and sells, and specializes in the multi-unit space. And so we can help you find the right people. We vet them ourselves. We interview them. We usually have personal relationships with them, and we will do that to help you guys kind of grow your business wherever you are.
Yep. So wherever you are, check that out. As an investor, aren't you now just relying on rents going up because of the increase in interest rate?
I mean, in general, like your business is collecting rents. That's where you make your money. So yes, you always relied on rents going up. Interest rates going down definitely helps, but realistically, I think if you're a small-time investor, it's not as impactful as like the really big institutional ones, because you'll see properties that don't even trade based on like what's going on, because these high-value rental properties are selling based on 35% down or 50% down in a lot of cities. So yes, I think you are now definitely relying on rents going up a lot, and you always were. But there's all the other things we've talked about before too, is like making sure you have a good location and development rights, and all those things are always going to play a factor in how you make your money, whether the rates are up or down. Like if you make a good buy now and you're able to get the zoning changed on a piece of land, it's still going to go up immensely in value, regardless if the rate's 4 or 1.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on if you're in a, like, you're talking about a property that you're going out to buy, or is a property you have currently. I mean, if it's property you have currently, you're sort of looking at this as a period of weathering the storm and hoping that you had a good investment to begin with, that, your numbers get leaner month to month, but they're not in the negative, or they're not crushing you or anything like that. On the purchase side, I think you're more waiting or being mindful of the fact that, the rising rates will help, but really you have to get the property at a lower price, right? Like, cap rates are going up, which means pricing should be coming down. So you're not just reliant on future higher rents. You're relying on hopefully getting a better deal, and also looking at the fact that you might have to put more money down on a property, which will in turn, the irony of putting more money down on the property, even though we don't like doing it, it improves the cash flow, right? So it depends if you're referring to a property you're in now, and a property that you might get into. I had this question, which is another one where it's like, I take issue with the question, but it says variable rate is about to go above the 5-year fixed. Are you still going variable? I think you answered that question a moment ago. But.
Yeah, I mean, I just took a variable.
Yeah.
Like I said, my biggest thing was whatever it was 3 months ago when we first talked about it, before the 100 basis point hike, I was all for taking a fixed. For like a year or two, take a fixed. At this point now, I think we're cusping out near the top end of where the rates are going to go. Even if the inflation doesn't cool, like they can't afford to take rates to this 8 to 10 range. I don't think it's an option. So at this point now, I would be still taking a variable.
Yeah.
It is a little weird. I was just saying I signed one just now, and it was variable. It's commercial money, so it's a little more expensive than residential. But 1 year was 6.03. 2 year was 5.75, but a 5 year was 5.64.
Right.
So it's cheaper to go 5 year, which you never really see, but that's an indication typically that rates are going to go down. I ended up taking a variable at 5.4, I believe it was 5.45.
Really? Gotcha.
So,
well, I mean, there's a couple things with that. I don't necessarily, the variables are going up, but they're still not past the fixed rates. Like, I know that there's fixed rates out there right now, 5-year fixed that you can get on residential insured at like 4.6.
Yeah.
Right. But prime rates right now are still 4.7, which means if you're on a prime minus 0.5 or prime minus 1, your variable rates right now on residential can be as low as 3.7 still. Mm-hmm. And yes, they're going to go up another 50 points and then probably another 50 points. So by the end of the year, they will probably go past that 4.6. Like they may even hit up to 5.2 on the high end on your variable stuff, depending on what type of variable mortgage you have. But I still feel like we're one, not there. And two, if we do crescent over it, then it's going to start rolling over and coming back down. Now, are there some people who locked in at 3.5 maybe 3 months ago and are feeling like really good about it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's a good fixed rate. I think we all would have said that is a good fixed rate.
Yeah.
But I still don't see, like, with the question with this is that variable rates going above the 5-year fixed, they're not yet. And even after the next rate increase, they're still not. Is that gap absolutely narrow? 100%. But I don't think it's gonna. If it goes over, it's gonna turn over pretty quickly right after that.
Yeah, no, agreed. Next question from Instagram, Jay Slayman. Thank you guys for your podcast. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
He says, I have great credit and my mother's credit is not great. She has a government job, but I'm a business owner. Can she be a co-signer? So he's basically looking to take her income and his credit. Because his income as a business owner isn't qualified.
I can't remember.
I believe you did on there, but
so basically, what I said is, unfortunately, you can't pick and choose what part of the profile you want to add, right? Like, so if she has great income but poor credit, and you have great credit but poor income, you can't just take the best of both and jam them together. It's the full picture, right? So there are some cases where you have to have a good broker to present your file in the best possible light. And, it may be beneficial to add that particular co-signer who's got great income but poor credit, or it could be detrimental.
I say it could be a
right?
detriment.
So the short answer is no, you can't just pick and choose. The long answer is, but it still may be worthwhile to add her to the file.
I will see this sometimes where I have clients that have amazing incomes but poor credits.
Yeah.
And we can't do anything for them, even with like co-signers and stuff, because they still need to qualify on their own.
Yeah.
Yes, as a combination, if you're both good, they will up your value. So it's not like one person has to be able to carry the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if you have credit's a really tough one. If your credit's down, it's tough to get around it because it can be a detriment to everyone else on that file. So
100%. Yeah.
I would suggest again looking to a broker to see what he can do with your business income. To try and see if there's a way to work that more so. Like,
100%.
I was talking with another agent in the office, and they were like, "Oh, I had to claim this much this year to get my mortgage," and I'm like, I was able to get my broker to take my corporation's income and get an exception approved based on the fact that my corporation makes the money, and I personally don't draw that much. So, I would suggest again talking to a broker that can potentially steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, having a good broker partner is everything. You got another one for me?
Let me see what the next one I had here was. Hey guys, I'm Chris, another Instagram. Big fan of the podcast. Thanks for listening, Chris. He is becoming a planner, so he's got a long message here.
Yeah.
Because I know you've touched briefly on planners in past podcasts, and I was just wondering if you could give me a bit more insight into the role that a planner plays in development projects and any experience that you've had working with planners. I'll be going to grad school for planning in the fall and just want to know what's out there in the private sector with developers, as I'm not super keen to work in the government.
Big shout out planners. I think I've pumped planner tires here a lot because they just have this huge knowledge base.
Yeah.
And in answering this question as well, I think I said something effective like, essentially planners unlock the potential of the development, right? If you got a piece of dirt, it's the planner who can say what you can do with that piece of dirt.
Yep.
So that means interpreting, zoning, understanding limitations, understanding possible exceptions, understanding the development application process in that given municipality or area, how to get up zoning, what obstacles you might face from the neighborhood if there's any public hearing component of it. They understand all of that. I think they are the primary integral part of development, and an architect will not maybe like that.
Jesus, get a room.
But man, planners, the information they have is amazing, and their role in development is they are the key to development.
If you're looking for a free lunch, Chandler's taking all planners out for a lunch, and he'll just.
I'm just jealous of the knowledge they have. Again, we were talking about other career choices, man.
No, I'm with you 100%.
It's incredible.
I would say my advice to you, Chris, having dealt with a few myself, is like Chandler said, become an absolute freak about everything in your area in the planning world. Know the document inside and out, and that'll make you like invaluable. Like, you will not be able to be replaced wherever you go work, and you'll likely, with a few years of experience, could even as a young person go out and start your own firm, because people will trust you. If you sit down with any developer or someone and say, hey, look, like, and you just chat with them, they'll know instantly that like you know your stuff inside out. They will give you projects. And there's also a ton of, I'll say for myself, like small people that are trying to get into development, where when I walk into these big planning firms, they are so slammed. Like my little projects, they're not interested. And sometimes they're quirky because I'm buying weird properties that nobody else wanted to deal with. And so if you come into this world with the knowledge and a ton of expertise and become a nerd about the planning, paperwork, I guess. Yeah. Then you can help people like me get started. And the second you have a few successes, like it goes in the news, right? Like you make a cool project go through, overnight your phone's going to ring 10 more times, your fees go through the roof. Like I think there's a ton of opportunity in the private world, but you also need to look to cities that are growing. Like you can't go to a city that's population shrinking and expect to go be super busy as a planner. You might be, but realistically, if you want to be in like a high-paced environment, get really cool projects, you need to look at Canada and see. Canada, again, is growing like mad, but you look at the cities that are growing the most and go to those. And I know for a fact in Halifax, every planning office, every private agency is slammed to the gills. And so you go to any of these guys, and I'm sure they would be interested in bringing you on, even if as a subcontract to help out.
Yeah, man. It's a classic example of knowledge being power. Like, and the knowledge that planners have.
It is super cool. I find myself reading the zoning docs throughout, and like I wish I had the time and understanding to really know the nitty gritties, because there's so many little asterisks. Like I read the first high level and it's like, you can do 4 units, but then I'll talk to a planner. It's like, oh man, you can do 12 units there because there's actually a thing in that area, or based on the fact that the property's already sitting there, or because you have this much frontage. And like, there's so many little nuances that they know. Or it's a heritage
property, so what you can do in the backyard is changed.
You're going to help people make basically a ton of money, and you're going to help people like really unlock the full potential of their property. And the second you do really good for one person, you're honestly, I feel like you're set.
Yeah.
So,
okay, we're gonna end on this question, or do you have another one for me?
Nope, that's my last one.
I thought this was a good one because it's been such a tumultuous year, and we're now, I mean, it makes me sick to say this, we're almost 8 months through this year.
It's cold outside.
We're 2/3 through 2022, and it seems like just yesterday we were doing our New Year's Eve special, talking about goals for the year. I'd love to actually back check that and see what our goals were and all this stuff.
No.
But what have you learned this year? We're all about learning. This is why we do this podcast, man. We want people to learn. If you're learning something, don't forget to press like.
I have learned that the BOC is full of shit.
Ooh. Yeah,
so
it's not a terrible lesson.
Yeah, no, they told me they were increasing rates till next year. I had a lot of projects coming to a close this year, and they raised them in advance. And so I've learned, like I have with anything in business, you need to prepare for the unexpected. And also I've learned to never let off the gas. I let off the gas for a little bit at the start of this year. Just as a personal decision, I wanted to take some time. And if you're in business and you have the intention to grow and go really big, you can never let off the gas. There's no coasting. You're either growing or you're shrinking. And I learned that the hard way. And I'm not necessarily regretful for it, because right now I'm small. And I think that the lesson that I learned hopefully will power through for the rest of my career. But never let off the gas, always prepare for the worst. And also, I never buy optimistically. I felt the pressure so hard to be super aggressive because everybody was.
Right.
And I'm glad I stayed true and didn't. But you can, like, there were so many buys going through. I'm like, man, am I going to regret this? But I'm doing a takeout on a property, or a bunch of takeouts right now on a bunch of different properties. And I'm glad that I didn't buy the stuff that I was hesitant about, because it could have really screwed my whole plan up, because I would have been stuck with a bunch of stuff. And down the road, there'll be equity, and down the road, the takeouts will be there. But again, as a small time person, like, I'd be stuck with those, and my income's shrinking. Obviously, we just talked about realtors are losing income right now. So with everything going on, I'm glad I played kind of the way I did. So again, long story short, you gotta play super cautious, because it doesn't matter. BOC, the government, any of that stuff, rules can change. What they say can change. And I think my other thing is just never let off the gas. If you intend to grow your business consistently and want to go to the top, I think you have to just be full throttle all the time.
Yeah, I think those are great points, and mine were kind of similar. My first thing would maybe be that nothing is forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're in business, nothing stays the same. And there's always that recency bias of like, all right, good times are happening, so they're going to happen forever.
Yep.
And not that the shoe is dropping by any stretch, but we've seen how quickly things can change, if not just in the pricing, but in the market climate and how it is to borrow money. So realizing that things don't last forever, and that maybe you do need to plan for alternative outcomes, like you mentioned. The other thing I kind of learned was to better trust the things that I interpret, because and take the advice that I would be giving clients, like personally. Like, we talked about going back to the very start of this podcast that rates were going to go up.
Yeah.
We talked about that they needed to go up, and we talk about things like, not overextending and not buying, in the heat of the moment. And, I need to do a better job of trusting that advice myself personally, because I think also if we had really taken our time and analyzed all the reasons that we felt like our money was cheap, what does being cheap mean? It's that, prices are going to soar.
Yep.
Like, we could probably left some great opportunities on the table back in 2020. Now, pandemic, it's a very different time, but like the idea of cheap money should have let us know that there are opportunities there, but then also have the foresight that they would not last, and they haven't. So anyway, that's a great question. I think everyone should be taking stock here now as we go into, we're approaching the fourth quarter here of 2022. Thanks so much for listening as always.
Yeah.
Just reminder, if you're getting something out of this content, please comment, post, like, share.
Send us questions.
Send us questions.
We will answer them. We will send you back a message, and we will bring them up on here. If you're uncomfortable with us bringing it up on the podcast, just let us know in there. But otherwise, expect that we will call you out.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. Don't forget to subscribe. But also check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find all the links below. Thanks again for checking us out.
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.